Hey guys, welcome back. This is the MMA Breakdown, doing predictions for UFC 189, Mendes versus McGregor. I already made a video giving my predictions for the full card. I'm not going to do that here. I'll quickly and briefly give a recap of all of my predictions, but I'll only be going into depth with the three new matchups that were not in place when I made my original video. The main event, of course, Mendes versus McGregor, Gunnar Nelson versus Brandon Thatch, also on the main card, and then a prelim matchup, Pendred versus John Howard. So I'll be giving my predictions for those three fights only on this video. And again, if you want to see my predictions for the full card or for the original main event, Aldo versus McGregor, check out my original video for my 189 predictions. As always, follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. I live tweet during fights, and just follow me on there. It'll be fun. And to give you guys a quick heads up of what's coming up in the month, this weekend, Sunday, after UFC 189 is the Tough 21 finale. I'm going to wait until Wednesday night or Thursday afternoon at the latest to have my predictions for that card out, because the final episode airs Wednesday, and instead of doing two separate videos, I'm just going to wait until we know what the final matchup for the show will be, the final contestants, and I'll make my predictions for those Wednesday or Thursday night at the latest. And I'll try to have before that, so probably tomorrow or Wednesday, my predictions for next week's event, Mir versus Duffy, out. Really like that fight night card. I think there are a lot of fun matchups there. And then next weekend, there's another event, so 4 events in 1 week. Fight night Scotland, Bisping versus Laities. Try to have my predictions out for that event at the end of this week, and then there's one more event at the end of the month, Dillashaw versus Barao 2 on Fox, which looks like a pretty decent card. I think Tough 21, the finale, is the worst event easily out of all of them in July. Just kind of a needless one that they need to showcase the finale from the show, but not a fan of that card. But anyways, that's what's coming up for me. Be on the lookout for those videos. But UFC 189, even with Aldo falling out and the new matchup, Mendes stepping in, I think it's great. I think Mendez is easily the number 2 guy, just by resume in the division, and easily the next best guy that McGregor could have fought for now the interim title. So I'm still extremely excited for it. And this Brandon Thatch versus Nelson matchup, I think, is by far a better fight than the 2 previous fights that were taking place beforehand. And Pendred versus Howard is also an interesting one. But let's do a quick recap for all of the fights. I'll just name off who I'm taking and maybe why briefly, but Cedeno versus Cody Pfister, I'm taking Cedeno, just because Cedeno, we saw him finish Gerard Sanders, and Pfister got finished by Muntazri in his last fight. Seery versus Louis Smolka, I'm taking Seery. Smolka coming off of a big knockout win over Vasilik, but was really getting beaten up until that point. And I think Seery can have similar success with his stand-up and his hand speed and pressure. So I'm taking Seery there to win a decision. Cody Garbrandt versus Henry Briones, now on the Fox Sports 1 prelims. I think Garbrandt's going to get a first-round knockout. I think that's a pretty easy one to call. Then we have Pendred versus Howard. Mike Swick versus Alex Garcia. I got to take Garcia. Mike Swick has just been out of the game for 2 or almost 3 years now, and did not look good when he went out. Got knocked out by Matt Brown. Got to go with Garcia. Matt Brown versus Tim Means. I think Matt Brown can get a finish, second or third round TKO. Tim Means is a good fighter, but just not on the level of Brown. Brown's been fighting elite guys, Hendricks, Lawler, the finish over Eric Silva. So I think Brown's stand-up is just more refined and more dangerous. So I'm going with Brown. And then on the main card, Brad Pickett versus Thomas Almeida, taking Almeida. Looks like a great prospect, really aggressive and dangerous stand-up. Pickett's just looked old and slow for his last several fights now. Then Nelson versus Thatch, which we'll get to. Bermudez versus Stevens. Going with Bermudez. Stevens, in his last fight against Oliveira, really struggled with the ground game, couldn't create any separation. And Bermudez is a workhorse, always coming forward. I think he's going to get it to the ground. I think he can win with a late sub or just dominate him on the ground for a decision. Lawler versus MacDonald. I'm going with MacDonald. I think this one is really close, though. I just don't think Lawler has really been improving in his skill set his last couple of fights. Had the finish over Ellenberger and had a nice win over Matt Brown also. But in the second Hendricks fight, I didn't think he looked that great, especially when he kind of freezed up on the feet in the second and third rounds, and Hendricks was able to outbox him, take him down. And MacDonald, I think, has really turned things around mentally since his first loss to Lawler, which was actually a split decision and pretty close. I think he can take Lawler down, though. It's pretty clear in the last fight that he can't really defend against takedowns all that well. Hendricks was able to get him early. And on the feet, MacDonald has completely reworked his game to be a real technician with the footwork and a real master at controlling distance. He showed that against Woodley and then dominated Safadine up until the point where he knocked him out. So I'm going to go with MacDonald to win a decision, but I think it could be close. I think Lawler could definitely win. And then the main event. But John Howard versus Cathal Pendred at welterweight. Cathal Pendred just coming off of his win over Augusto Montano at UFC 188 about a month ago. So stepping in on short notice. John Howard, has not looked good at all in his last couple of fights. Is really kind of on the decline, and I think on his way out of the sport. Getting knocked out by Lorenz Larkin in his last fight in the first round pretty brutally. Didn't even put up a fight. Before that, lost a really crappy decision to Brian Ebersol, where Ebersol really wasn't doing anything dangerous, but Howard just looked completely stifled and never got into a rhythm on the feet. But it wasn't all that long ago that he fought Ryan LaFleur and gave him a pretty tough fight. And LaFleur, I think, is just worlds better than Cathal Pendred, both on the feet and definitely on the ground. A decorated wrestler, he was able to take down Howard, but Howard scrambled out. He did a good job of getting up off of his back. It wasn't like LaFleur could just hold him down the whole fight. Howard even reversed him from his back at a couple points and was able to get and mount. He also had LaFleur in a bit of trouble on the feet at points. Was able to tag him and wobble him a bit and made LaFleur resort to the takedown. Pendred, his chin is just terrible. Even in the Montano fight, briefly got dropped early. I think it was the second round. Pendred is very slowly, I think, getting better, getting very slightly more effective each time out with his wrestling game and his pressure with the grappling. But, has been dropped in every single one of his UFC fights. And I think it's just time that the rubber meets the road for Pendred here. Howard does nothing but throw bombs. His stand-up is not clean at all, but, he's really a headhunter and looks to load up on all of his shots. And I think he's going to connect on Pendred. The fights with Uriah Hall wasn't really able to connect meaningfully in that fight, and C.R. Bahadurzadeh didn't really hurt him there either, but Pendred's striking defense is really some of the worst in the UFC. And even if Howard doesn't put him away, I think he can win a decision. Pendred, I think, is big enough to impose, his frame on him and get him down. But from there, Howard is a good scrambler, and like I already said, was able to compete well on the ground with Ryan LaFleur. So I really like Howard to win this. I don't think Pendred can hold him down. And on the feet, I think Pendred is really going to be in big trouble at any point where this fight is going to be on the feet. So really like Howard to win this. Terrible matchup for Pendred. And I got to go with Howard by TKO. I'd say second round maybe. All right, and then on to the main card matchup at welterweight, Gunnar Nelson versus Brandon Thatch. By far a better matchup than either of the two that were going to take place before this. Brandon Thatch was slated to fight John Howard, and Gunnar Nelson was taking on John Hathaway, and this is just a way more intriguing and relevant fight. And I'm really conflicted on this one. I think Brandon Thatch has a big advantage on the feet, but I think Gunnar Nelson has probably an equally as big advantage on the ground. Gunnar Nelson's stand-up, he just hasn't proven to be able to compete at a high level on the feet in the UFC. Got outboxed for 5 rounds against Rick Story in his last fight and got dropped in the 5th round. Even against Zach Cummings early in their fight, he really wasn't getting anything done on the feet. Cummings actually won the 1st round, and he was just kind of able to outmuscle him, push him up against the fence, was winning the clinch battle, and was able to outstrike him for that 1st round. And Thatch, being a big, far more aggressive guy than Zach Cummings, and just a way more dangerous and skilled fighter on the feet, I think is really going to push Nelson, come right at him. I thought Thatch did a great job against Benson Henderson, not blowing his wad, but keeping enough pressure, throwing enough volume to, keep Henderson guessing and always on his toes. So I really like Thatch on the feet here. And Nelson, against Cummings, he was able to eventually, take over on the feet, got the fight to the ground and subbed him there. But on the feet, I think Nelson's just going to really be at a disadvantage. Brandon Thatch is too much of a motor. He's a bulldozer. Really hunts for that finish and his big fight-ending power. So I really like Thatch on the feet. But in the fight against Ben Henderson, Thatch really looked like a fish out of water once it hit the ground. And that's where I think Nelson can really capitalize here. Even though I don't really think much of Nelson's stand-up, his ground game I do think is still pretty spectacular. Finished Omari Akhmedov and DeMarcus Johnson on the ground in his first couple of fights. Those aren't really great guys, high-level fighters. But the fight against Akhmedov, once he got it to the ground, it was just smooth. He was able to get the guillotine, I think, from Mount, and finished it off there. And then I think even got Story down once or twice, and their fight was able to take him down. But the fight against Cummings, was able to adjust after losing on the feet. And once he got to the ground, it was a wrap. He gets that body triangle from the back, and, it's over. I think Nelson, realizes he's in big need of a win here, needs to redeem himself after his last loss. And I think, if he fights smart, if he really looks to get this to the ground early, he can submit Brandon Thatch, capitalize there. But, against Zach Cummings, against Rick Story, he was really just content to hang around on the feet, even though he was losing there clearly and not getting anything done. So I don't like his chances if he fights that way here. If he fights on the feet and doesn't really look to get it to the ground, he needs to really do that early. I think he will, though. I think he recognizes that, Thatch didn't defend very well there against Henderson. I think he gets it to the ground early and subs out Thatch. So I'm taking Nelson, but I definitely think this could go either way, and Thatch is very capable of winning here and stopping him on the feet. All right, now the main event, Chad Mendes versus Conor McGregor. And everyone who's taking Mendez is taking him because of his wrestling. But I actually like Mendez's chances on the feet here. And I picked Aldo to beat McGregor. In my other video, you can see my reasoning there. But I actually think this is a better matchup for McGregor than Aldo. Before making my predictions, I probably would have said, Mendez is a tougher test because he's a wrestler. I think Mendez has a better chance of finishing McGregor early than Aldo does. But if it goes the distance, if it goes into the deeper rounds, I think McGregor has a big advantage over Mendez here that I don't think he really had against Aldo, at least in my estimation. But Mendez, I just think, is so explosive and powerful with his striking. I mean, he has the perfect frame, really, that 5'6", that kind of height there. He has the perfect frame for the smaller weight class fighters. Super compact, huge power, and once he gets on the inside, you saw it against Ricardo Lamas. The guy just has one-punch knockout power. Throws those overhands, but he has technique. He's not a sloppy kind of puncher's chance fighter. He really has the skill throwing the hands, great hand speed, but also has that deadly power. And if him and McGregor get into a gunfight early, I just really like Mendez's chances landing a huge shot. Against Diego Brandao, McGregor was really in complete control, but still, Brandao was able to land a few shots on the feet. McGregor got a little, I think, overeager there. And, Mendez is coming in on short notice. That could really play a big factor, especially in a 5-round fight. But I really like Mendez early when he's fresh, has all of his, energy, his gas. I think he has big power in those first rounds and can catch McGregor and put him away. And I do think he's a good enough wrestler if it does go into the deeper rounds. And it's not that I think, Mendez gasses. I mean, against Aldo, that was an incredible fight and, took all of Aldo's best shots, was dropped several times, but was there till the end, throwing and still making that fight competitive till the end. So it's not that I don't think he can go the distance with McGregor, but if he doesn't hurt him early, I really think McGregor will have an advantage with that footwork and movement that I didn't think was going to be as effective against Aldo. If Mendez can't really do anything to hurt McGregor early, I think McGregor's footwork, he can get in and out, stifle him, use the range striking and start to pick him apart. And accumulate his strikes, and work towards that finish in the later rounds. And I think Mendez, obviously, he's a good wrestler, decorated background. I think he can mix in a takedown here or there if, the fight plays out, goes several rounds. But I don't like his chances to just, take him down and hold McGregor down. Even though we haven't seen McGregor tested against a high-level wrestler, you saw against Seery, he does, look like he's really good at getting up off of his back. That's kind of, incorporated to all of his unorthodox footwork and movement. Once he hits the mat, he gets right back up, really moves his hips well, and I don't think Mendez could really hold him down, and win a decision, much less for 5 rounds do that. But I like Mendez's chances early. I just think, a lot of times when guys, get back to the title, they don't really transform themselves. But you look at Mendez's first fight with Aldo, just looking really timid, hesitant, and just going out in really kind of a disappointing way. And then he went on a big win streak, drastically improved his striking. And I'll admit, some of the guys he beat in that win streak were not high-level guys. Some of the guys he ran through, Yatsen Mesa, Darren Elkins, even Clay Guida, not really an elite guy in the featherweight division. but improved his striking, got the rematch with Aldo, and the first fight Mendez was here with Aldo. Aldo was here. Mendez, just completely outclassed. And then the second fight, they were neck and neck. And you just saw how much Mendez improved and how competitive he was able to make that fight, dropping Aldo several times, taking all of his shots, and was there till the end. And you saw that power, that huge power Mendez has. Once he closes that distance, gets inside, gets right in front of you, he has big, nasty power. And you saw it against Ricardo Lamas. Lamas started to work his leg kicks and his striking from the outside. Once Mendez got in, just threw that overhand, and boom, it was over. So I just really favor that power of Mendez early in this fight, and I'm going to take him. I think he's just improved so much over the last few years since his first fight with Aldo, and that power is really something I think they can put anyone out. And McGregor does like to, press the action early, and you saw it against Brandao. He likes to get in a gunfight. But if he's cautious, stays away, drags the fight through several rounds, I do heavily like McGregor's chances going into the later rounds. So I'm going to take Mendez, but again, McGregor, I still, I respect everything he's done, and could definitely see him getting the finish here. But I'm taking Mendez. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC 189, Mendez versus McGregor. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, comment, and subscribe. Remember, I'll have my predictions out next for Mir versus Duffy, and then later in the week for the Tough 21 finale this weekend. But I'm going to continue my predictions throughout the year, and just, I'm going to try to be here making these videos forever. The recaps, I think those are kind of over and done with. I've just gotten too busy now. But yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys later, and take care. Bye.